what this conversation is going to bring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit, what's going on now? What kind of brought you to where you are now?
Yeah. And so I'll tell you just a touch more personal stuff about me, just so people can get that's what I've done with my career and what I do with my job and everything like that. But I'll tell you just a little bit more about me so people can just know I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. Originally was born and raised there. Went to UNC Greensboro, played baseball there, and I met my wife. Coming up on 25 years of marriage this month,
Ooh,
May 20th. So
congratulations.
yeah, which is awesome. We have 3 kids. We have our son Braden, who's 23, son Megan, she's 20, a student at UNC Chapel Hill, and then we have Lainey, who's a high school sophomore at Reynolds High School here in Winston-Salem. And so, yeah, we live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My wife is a nurse also, so I'm very proud of her being out on the front lines,
Yeah, for sure.
doing everything that she's done. And so it's really good. So yeah, well, I'll talk a little bit about my Marine Corps past. I was a pilot, obviously, and we talked about that. I flew those 2 aircraft, the CH-46 Echo, the V-22 Osprey. I was also a flight school student there, but I've had that we'll talk about throughout the podcast, but I've had the opportunity to do some pretty interesting things. But I developed this platform called Convene Communities. And basically what it is, an online platform that allows people to come together that are like-minded individuals. And that's what's so special about this is I honestly feel like that Convene, at this point in time in the world and bringing people together is what we need to be doing. And I think you're right. It's all on God's time and it's God's intervention that you and I came together. And when you were sent, and I read your webpage, which is impressive what you've done as just as well. It's just an honor just to be on here because I think we both are walking the same mission, and that mission is to help others. And if we can help others and lift each other, others up, then we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel that more in my heart every day.
Yeah.
But the more I do this, and and I'm sure you can relate to this, there have been numerous times where I would just wanted to throw in the towel
Yeah.
because it's like sometimes you're just wondering like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Maybe I was supposed to do something. I don't know. But I just every time I tried to do something else, and there's been many a times where I even explained that in the book that I just wrote. There's been so many times where I tried to go a different direction because I
Mhm.
felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And
Yeah.
every time those things didn't work out. And I ended
Yeah.
up right back in the place where I was before. And I just kept, back then my spirituality wasn't quite where it is now, obviously. And so I just kept like, why does this keep happening to me? Like, I just want to help people. Like, that's what I used to always say. Like, I just want to help people.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
now I'm starting to realize, like, well, all I had to do was just keep going. And I am helping people, and
That's
I
right.
always was helping people,
That's
and you just
right.
have to be patient and let it all come together. So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, and you and I have had this conversation, so I have a master's degree in Christian counseling, right? And so, but I never thought I could go back. And this is some of the things, I never thought I could go back and get my degree in a master's degree. Just didn't think about it. Right. We
right.
talked about it before. You have a master's degree too. So what's
Yeah,
your master's degree?
healthcare
What's your
management.
so I have to this, but still, that plays into the part of all the stuff that you and I have talked about, right? Healthcare management, that's what you're helping people with. And so I just kept feeling like I was getting called to go back and get my degree. And crazy things would happen. Like I would just be thinking about going back and getting my degree. And then I would go to Facebook and there'd be, Liberty University, Christian counseling, you know, advertisement there, almost like they were plugged into me.
Yeah.
But it just kept getting called to go back and get my degree because I want to help people. I honestly feel like that's what I'm here for, is to help people. And so I tell the story often about, being at work, and I had taken 2 classes, and I was just overwhelmed. I was working all the time, working
Yeah.
on Convene, but working all the time. And as an aeromedical pilot. And those are long days, long nights. I was
Oh yeah.
flying a lot of nights and a lot of nights. I was working 24, 26 days a month. I was just grinding it
Yeah.
out, but I loved every single bit of it.
Yeah.
And we'll bring that up later. But there's a nurse named Lisa, and she walked by the pilot office and she looked in and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was getting ready to cancel my next two classes. And she
Mm,
said, I said, "Well, I think I'm going to just cancel my next two classes. I'm just too overwhelmed." And she goes, "No." She goes, "Don't do that." And she had just started nurse practitioner schools, but she looked at me and she said, "Promise me just two more." And she
mm,
goes, "Promise me just two more. Take two more classes." And I was like, "Okay, I promise." And it became a joke over time of
just two
just
more.
two more until, and all of a sudden I was done and it was over with. And, I really thank her for helping me just stay on that path,
Yeah.
But then you and I talked about this, and I've talked about this too, but who am I to think that I can be, a Christian counselor? Who am I? You
Yeah.
know, but the bottom line is we're here to help others and we're here to help guide them.
Right.
We're here to help them out and take them down that path. And if we're in whatever way that we can do that, it's just so important. And that's
Yeah.
what you're doing with your business and all that. That's what's so impressive.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. It's like you're gonna get led, and I can definitely relate to that. When I was active duty, I was actually taking three classes. I wanted when physician assistant school didn't work out, I said, well, I'm gonna go to nursing school. So I started taking two classes, and then I was also working on my master's and working 15, 16-hour days. So I can
Yeah.
definitely relate to that part of it.
Yeah.
um, I never had anybody. Fortunately, I had that internal drive where I just refused to, let the outside chaos win.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I remember I had, because, I was in the Air Force, so I had some airmen under me. And I remember I would have, a couple of them come to me and always ask me about school, like how do I start school and stuff like that. And I think that's what really kept me motivated, because inside I realized I was actually inspiring this younger generation to
Absolutely.
do something do something different with their lives, and not just rely on that job that we were in and things like that. So I think that was my main motivation, is just
Yeah.
knowing that I had some little eyes watch. I say little because they were younger than me. I had those eyes watching me, and so that was kind of my little two more classes. But but
But that's
and
right.
then nursing school didn't work out. I ended up, it's so funny though, because the one class that I didn't get to take because I was deployed was nutrition. And then a year later I ended up becoming a nutrition specialist and taking that
Yeah.
nutrition class. So
But
who
it's all on
knew?
God's time, right? Yeah. So, but it's all on God's time, right? We
Right.
did. I've talked a lot about that. It's on His time. I've been, well, to a couple of things is that, yeah, you're right. When we're in that role, when we're in the military, we're in a job, or we're in uh, our spouse mode, or we're in a parenting mode,
Mhm.
or coaching mode. that People are looking at you.
Yeah.
They're looking at you as a role model. Like how is Jody doing? How is Matt doing it? People do pay attention to it, and that's
Right.
not really why you do anything that you do,
Right.
but it is important at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, but you have to have that drive. You have to have
Yeah.
that, and you have that drive, which is wonderful, and it's led you, obviously to do great things. Um,
Yeah.
so which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is that whole self-awareness thing, because I will say my drive was also to a fault, because sometimes I was too driven. And
Yeah.
so I had to, that's kind of one of the things I was saying earlier, we'll kind of talk about in a little bit, is just last year it was kind of, I was going through this whole entire journey where some of those things started becoming more aware to me. And I started realizing that I was pushing so much because I needed that title. I needed to be successful, whatever that was. In all reality, I already had all the tools that I needed. I just needed to treat people well and be the positive energy everywhere I went. That was it.
Yeah, that's it.
but it's
Well, but
definitely
so many
interesting.
people are looking for that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so many people are looking for it, right? So many people are looking at somebody they can look up to and looking for that positive, that positive reinforcement, that person that they can, really look to who's succeeding and doing great things. And so it's so important that you do set that tone, I guess you say. And and you were already doing it, in the walk with everyday life that you were taking. So, which
yeah.
is, again, I just, nah, I'm impressed. So I need to be more like you
Aw,
and
yeah,
my,
right.
my
But
workout
you know
world.
one thing I've
And
learned though, like, and it's funny you just said that because I was saying that about you, right? So, but I think it's interesting
yeah,
the kind of the connections that I'm making these days, and I'm sure you can probably relate to this too, is we can usually connect off of each other, right? So you have so many areas that you have your expertise in and you're really good at, and then I have certain areas, and it's interesting how these connections are just coming together more and more. I know for me, and it's like, wow,
yeah.
we can do so much more together, like
Absolutely. So I'll jump in on something with that since you kind of led me in on that on convene communities, right?
right,
And the idea behind convene communities is that we all have a story and we all have different passions, but no matter who you are, our stories interconnect. We all have things in common, but we also all have different interests, right? We have
right,
different things that we are interested in. But with those stories, we can all learn from each other. We can sit back and, I can say, hey, Jody, if you were in this situation, how would you handle it? And you could say the same to me. And I'm going to tell you, and how I'm going to tell you is talking through my life experience, right? And
exactly,
and so we learn through experience. That's really how we learn. That's what when I go out and I speak and I talk and I go talk at different places, corporations, that's what I'm talking about is that we
right,
learn through each other. We learn through each experience. When you stand up in front and you're teaching your clients about fitness and you're teaching, about nutrition, you're teaching them through your experience, but you're also showing them through who
right,
you are, and the things that you do. And so it's so important. And that's what convene is. Convene is, can we bring like-minded individuals together, and it's a resource that anybody and everybody can use, but people can come together. Like yesterday, we did an event that was about drug prevention, and we had the top three nonprofits in America came together in this summit, right?
mhm,
Drug Free America, Drug Free World, and steeredstraight.org, which is the number one speaker in the country
yeah,
for high schools and middle school. It's amazing, but it's a message where, we can go out and help people, right? And we
right,
can provide that resource. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So let me ask you,
So,
you were in
yeah,
the military, like before you retired, did you envision all of this?
well, all right. So good. That's a great question. So let me talk about where convene came from. Let me just
Okay,
tell the story. All
okay,
right. So, and this is when I go out and I speak and I talk about this because I can, we just tie this to real life, right? Is July 9th, 2001, I was out on getting ready to go out and do a flight. And during this flight, we were going to fly a section of CH-46s, which is the helicopter behind me, and I was the flight lead for that particular flight. And you lived in the aviation world
hmm,
back when you were in the military. So we were going
right,
out and flying two aircraft, and we were going to go do it. Well, I had a combat crew chief that I flew with all the time. The majority of my flights, I flew with him. So I walked into maintenance control where you take control, you sign for the aircraft as the pilot. And he was standing in there. And I was like, hey, bro, why aren't we flying together? And he's like, well, I'm not flying with you tonight. Sergeant Salah, this new guy that just got to the squadron, is going to fly with you. And he goes, but don't worry. He said, we're scheduled tomorrow night. Right. So we walk out, we both go to our aircraft, we take off. We're flying as a section, which means we're both going together, but we take off separately and we go down because we're going to go practice doing some practice shipboard landings at what's called the LHA deck on the New River in Jacksonville, North Carolina.
Okay.
So we had an aircraft issue inside of our aircraft. And so we were sitting on the front of the LHA deck. The other aircraft was still practicing their landings. And I said to the gunny that was in the back, I was like, hey, where they at? He goes, sir, they're on downwind. I'm like, okay. And we kept talking about what it had, what we were talking about inside of our helicopter.
Right.
And we were ready to lift. And I said, hey, Gunny, can we lift? And he goes, sir, did they call departing? And I was like, what do you mean, Gunny? And Sergeant Salah stuck his head out the window and said, what do you mean, Gunny? Aircraft just don't disappear. And he said, sir, there are rocks in this water, because he had just gotten there from Okinawa, Japan.
Mm.
But I was like, no. And he said, come up now, sir. They're in the water. And I pulled the helicopter up and I kicked the tail around, and the helicopter was sticking up out of the water.
Oh my goodness.
And what they had made a 12-second human error inside of the helicopter, and they had flown the helicopter into the water. And so the hard part about that is that that particular night, we lost 3 Marines. 2 survived, three didn't make it out of that mishap.
Mm.
And one being Clark Beatty. And Clark Beatty was, like I said before, he was my combat crew chief. When
Right.
I checked into the squadron, I got out of my car in my dress uniform, and you'll relate to this. I got out of my squadron in my dress uniform. He got out of his car in his dress uniform, and we walked in together. I went to see the XO. He went to see the sergeant major, and we walked back out, and we were pretty much assigned to each other.
Mm.
And so all of a sudden he's gone,
Yeah.
one of my best friends gone over a 12-second human error. So it should have never happened. But the hardest part about that was I learned about a day and a half later that a similar mishap had happened in another squadron about a year and a half, 2 years prior. But what they didn't do is they didn't share that information outside of that squadron. It was
Oh
a
my goodness.
it was a 6 cent fix. It was unscrewing a bolt and screwing in a different
Oh my
bolt
goodness.
that would have caused those red cockpit dome lights not to come on. It turned it into what was called a single toggle switch into a dual toggle switch,
Right.
meaning that you had to pull it to turn it on and you had to pull it to turn it off. Well, instead, once it was a single toggle switch, so you could hit it and turn it on, but to turn it off, you had to pull it. So they couldn't get it off. And everybody focused on turning that light off, and they flew it right into the water.
Oh my
And it
goodness.
didn't happen. And so, 2 days later, or a day and a half later, when we were out there, myself and my crew, we went out there, me and the gunny and Sergeant Salah went out there, and we watched them pulling the helicopter out of the water, and here we are, just 3 grown men, 3 Marines crying because we just lost 3 people that we loved and cared about. And I promised to Clark Beatty that day, I was like, no, this can't happen. Senseless stuff like this can't happen. So that's really when the whole journey of Convene kind of started, was July 9th, 2001, is that we have to talk. We have to share our stories. We cannot let people, make mistakes. Now, I worked in the time critical decision making, the corporate environment, how we make decisions, crew resource management, team communications. I still do all that. I
Mm-hmm.
speak, and do that. But I also believe what would happen is I would go out and I would talk at a conference or I'd talk at a seminar, and people would come up to me afterwards and they would say, hey, Matt, can I speak to you? And I would say, yep. And they would say, I know you were talking to me about being a nurse or a first responder, but can I talk to you about my marriage? Can I talk to you about my relationship? Can I talk to you about parenting? And so that's when God was pulling on me saying, hey, your message is bigger. Your message is bigger.
Right.
And go, and that's when I decided, to go back and get my degree in counseling. It took me a while to get there, but,
Yeah.
you know, I got there. So
Wow.
that's the story behind how Convene. Yeah. So you asked the question, but yeah, that's where Convene and the idea and the concept of Convene came from. And unfortunately, it was the loss of one of my best friends.
How amazing. Well, and I read about that, but you telling it like gave me chills. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely totally different when you tell the story rather than just reading about it. But as you just said what you said when you said a loss, is what sparked that. And I immediately thought of my mom, because in 2009, when I was 7 months pregnant, my mom passed away when I was taking prerequisites for physician assistant school. And that really, watching her suffer those last couple years is what pushed me into the medical direction,
Yeah.
because I was taking her to doctor's appointments. I was driving 4 hours. I was working mid shift, night shift for anybody who doesn't know what mid shift is.
Yeah.
I was working night shift on the flight line. Obviously, we didn't have our child by then, but working, I would drive 2 hours to go pick up my mom, take her to doctor's appointments right after work. And then I would take a nap at a rest stop and drive back. And that was literally probably what I think from the middle of 2007 until she passed away in 2009. So that, I took pharmacology to learn how her medications were interacting with each other. And it's interesting how when you just said that, and I thought of that, and I always tell people, I say, it, it's unfortunate, but it's sometimes that loss that just
Yeah.
gives you that kick.
Yeah.
Like, this does not have to be what life is all about. And that's
That's
what
right.
really sparked my passion. Like, that's why I'm so passionate now about, like, when people do diets, they do all these fad diets and they're drinking all these juices and doing all this, and I'm like, you know how dangerous that is for you. I
Yeah.
love that you're trying to be healthier, and I love that you're losing weight, but let's do it the right way, you know?
Yeah.
And it's because I watched that suffering, and oh my goodness. Yeah,
But
crazy.
yeah, you're right. And you know what? I think, and I think I'll say this, and I think you'll agree. I think Clark looks down on what I'm doing, and I think he's like, keep it up, keep it up. And I know that your mom, looks down and she's proud,
Yeah,
and that's a driving force for me. It's
yeah,
a driving force to continue, you know, we lost 3 Marines and it didn't need
right,
to happen, right? I
right.
worked in the air medical world and people would say, hey, the air medical world, being an air medical pilot, that's a dangerous job, because it is a dangerous job. There's a lot of loss. But we have the best equipment in air medical. We have the best pilots, the best mechanics,
Yeah,
right? The best med crews, right? So no, it's not that dangerous of a job. It's
right.
this person right here that makes it dangerous. It's my decision making process. It's how I go about, do I take that flight? Do I not take that flight? So it's those decision making process. So, it's teaching people. You
Yeah,
gotta, make decisions and the proper decisions. So I think Clark looks down, and I think he's like, yep, you know, and in his loss, something good has come out of it. And
yeah,
I dedicate it back to him every day, you
yeah. Wow.
know.
Oof, goodness.
Yeah. That's right.
Ugh, I don't
It's
even know if I can
big.
go any further after all that. No.
I know. It is a deep conversation, it
Yeah,
does get deep. And when I go out and I speak about it, I do the same thing. I mean, because the first 15 minutes or so, and it's even more intense when I talk about it in, a seminar or, in a
right,
training, because, I'm up there normally and I have pictures, I have slides, I have, people are seeing things and I'm getting emotional and they're getting
right.
emotional. It doesn't matter a man or a woman, you feel it, and
Yeah,
then you have to come out of that and you have to lighten the mood, and and
yeah,
because
yeah,
it does get deep. But the point
yeah,
is, again, we learn through our life experiences.
yeah, yeah.
you know
And I always say, I think my mom is definitely in our daughter, because, and I think about that because, like I said, I was 7 months pregnant with our daughter at the time when she passed. But, like our daughter, she's 10 and she listens to 70s Led Zeppelin, like, I'm like, what the, like, how do you even know that? Like, and my husband, like, I will give my husband some credit. One of his hobbies is music. So he listens to all different varieties of music.
yeah,
It's, so I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But I don't know. It's so interesting how, things just kind of come full circle. And
yeah.
one of the things I talk about with people is, because a lot of people don't realize my mom and I actually didn't have that great of a relationship during the majority of my life,
Hmm.
just because, she was an addict and she was married to an addict who, and I lived in kind of a domestic violence household too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff going on, but one of the things I always tell people is, don't let someone pass away without forgiving them,
Yeah.
because one of the best things that I could have done before she passed was forgave her and told her that I forgave her.
Yeah.
So I can only pray and hope that that gave her some peace, knowing that.
Oh, and I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. And Jesus tells us that, right? He talks
Right.
about that. That's one of the things that we're supposed to do
Yeah.
is, look at our brothers and our sisters and, have that compassion in their heart. And I know that everybody listening and everybody out there, we've all had things that just really you feel like you've been done wrong. And
Yeah.
I talk to my kids about this all the time. And I think that one of the best things that my father did for us is he preached the golden rule to us, do unto others as you've had them
Yeah.
do. And I believe that, right? And I live that. I try to live that. And I think that's one of the things that we don't always just live by that simple rule, And so I try to
Very
teach
true.
my kids, and I really talk because like my father did, is that, you treat people how you want to be treated. And I always tell my kids, hey, if you would not like it, then don't do it to somebody else. If it
Right.
hurts your feelings, it would hurt theirs. But that goes back to what you're saying is that, you know, not everything, this world is not perfect and not everybody's going to treat you great and you're going to make mistakes too. But if you
Right.
want that same forgiveness and all that, you have to be willing in your heart to forgive, just like we're taught.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And so I know that with your mom, that meant a lot to her.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. One of the things I learned last year though is while I did forgive her, I never forgave my stepdad.
Mhm.
I never did. And he passed away long before she did. And that I think is what kept me from forgiving myself,
Yeah.
because I wasn't forgiving myself for a lot of things that, just stuff that happened in the past. I could write a whole nother book on all that.
Yeah.
But and it's very interesting. And like you said, it says that in the Bible. And when I read that, and I was just like, okay, once I released that burden and forgave him, oh my goodness, it was like my whole life just began to
Thank
just
you.
transform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's just how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
again, you walk how Jesus walked. I don't know if you were going to go there or talk about this, but I was lucky enough, and we've talked about this. I was lucky enough to go to Israel
Yeah.
last year, and I spent 10 days in Israel, and to start in the Golan Heights in the northern part of Israel, go to the Sea of Galilee, get baptized in the Jordan River, go to Jerusalem, walk where Jesus walked, be where Jesus died on the cross, be where he rose from the dead, be where he ascended into heaven, and then to continue down to, you know, Bethlehem in the Dead Sea. You can't, to just walk. And it's incredible because it makes, and I read the Bible and I talk. Now, when we're talking these stories from the Bible, I'm there. I got pictures on my phone
That's
where
awesome.
I'm there, you
Yeah.
know, and it's really cool. But, that's the point. The point, part of it is that that's what he taught us to do, is to walk in his image and treat people how you want to be treated and forgive people, right?
Right.
Because that's what he was here for us.
So what would you say to people if, and I've had people ask me this question because they like we said earlier, people are watching. So I have had people come to me on this too. But what would you tell people when they're kind of just starting their journey, their spiritual journey, and kind of feeling lost and not so sure, how to keep going and things like that? What would be some advice you would have for them?
So one thing that I struggled with, and I'll tell you this, is that I struggled with like what I was. If you go back to going back and getting my degree in Christian counseling, the who am I? I struggled with that question. Like I'm not, who am I to think I can go and be a counselor or a Christian counselor? Who am I to think that I'm even worthy of that? I don't know the Bible. I'm so bad at numbers and I'm so bad at memorizing things. So I'm not one that can sit there and quote scripture to you, right? I can talk stories. I can tell you things in the Bible. I can do all that, but I can't say, well, in Matthew 1 verse 2, I wish I had a better,
Thank you for
thought
saying
process than
that. I felt like I was the only one. Thank you.
that. You are not the only one, but that made me doubt. That made me doubt myself, and I think a lot of times, Christians and people of faith, when they start that journey, I think they feel maybe so overwhelmed. And don't get overwhelmed. Just stay with it.
Yeah.
Just stay with it. If there's something, don't worry about. If there's something you want, like I have this book right here. I'll just hold it up, like biblical counseling, right? Biblical counseling. Well,
Biblical.
I'll get calls all the time, and people will say to me, they'll say, I'm struggling with this and all that. And so maybe it's something that I have not, really looked at a Bible verse about, so I have that, and I can go and I can reference it, and I can say, if you're struggling with, let's say depression, somebody struggling with depression, well, there's a whole chapter of biblical principles on counseling somebody through depression.
Hmm.
So don't get so overwhelmed with, I think sometimes that we get, so I did to begin with, I'm just being honest with you, I used to get so overwhelmed with, I don't know
Yeah.
all the things that are in the Bible,
Right.
right? And I think sometimes that's intimidating, you know. So
Yeah.
just take it day by day, take it day by day, and do that journey day by day, and just really kind of, one, I think is important. Yes, get in the Bible, understand it, and
Right.
I like to watch videos. Obviously, we all do. So I go back sometimes because I'm not as much of a reader as I should, but I'll go back and watch YouTube videos. Go to YouTube, watch, look up, all that. There you can watch a video on anything, and I
Right.
watch videos on the Bible just to help my
Hmm.
understanding of it.
That's good.
And I think people learn in different ways. We've talked about this. People learn through videos,
Right.
visual. People learn through. Some people love to read. Some people don't. So yeah. So my advice would be is have faith, right? And just give yourself to the Lord and just give yourself to God, but have faith. And in that faith, just find different ways to learn.
Hmm.
And in that learn, it's a journey. It's not
Right.
overnight. You can't just go, oh, okay, I'm going to know it all in 2 weeks. I'm going to be, okay, I'm a Christian. That's not,
Yeah.
it's a journey. It's a
Yeah.
day-to-day journey.
Yeah.
So,
That's good. It's interesting. I had a conversation earlier that we kind of talked about that because I was even saying, I was like, as I kind of started going through this journey, really what I had to do was apply the principles that I was coaching other people on. It was the same stuff, right? Like I always tell people it's not going to happen overnight. It's a daily journey. It's all about consistency. It's all about making the time. It's all, and so I really just had to, and it's funny because I was going through a Bible study at the church that I go to now, and they were actually, that's what they started talking about. And I was just like, this is the same stuff I coach people on. Like, wow, who knew? Like I just had to listen to my own advice. Really? That's it?
that's right. So within convene, and I'm actually getting on a call after this, with Inside of Convene, the Pillar Church. Like that's what they do. They have, it's incredible, and I'm so glad I'm helping them build their group out within Convene, because they teach people, like,
Yeah.
and it's a process. It's not, they teach people, discipleship. Well, guess what? It's not just a process. It's not a short process. It's a journey,
Right.
right? So it's a journey, and if you truly want to believe in God, and you truly want to believe in Jesus, and you truly want to be a Christian, you can't just say, "Okay, I'm a Christian," and
Right.
not walk it, not
Right.
talk it, and not believe it, and not treat people the way you want to be treated, and not treat people with the respect that that Jesus would expect you to, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's good.
Yeah.
So do you counsel people who aren't Christians?
I do. Yes, I
Okay.
do.
So how do you go about that? Because I think that's kind of one of the things that I kind of struggle with right now because I have people from all walks of life. So I'm not ever sure like, how should I go about but but then I was like, well, maybe I should just stop questioning this and just do it the same way that I always do,
Yeah.
and because that's what works. But how do you go about doing so, do you change things? Do you talk to people differently, or what do you do?
I do and I don't. I mean, I think what I try to do is that I look at every chance that I get to bring somebody closer. Every chance, and like I said, you have to look at each individual differently. You have to find out, and so that's the next step. Let me explain this because I think this is important. As a counselor, the do unto others, you have them do unto you. Well, that's true, but there's also something different. Is you are not me. We're different people,
Right.
right? So I have to, it's my job as a counselor or a coach, a soccer coach or a parent, my three kids are all different. So it's up to me to find out what makes you tick. But I look at every opportunity I can to, as I'm counseling somebody, as I'm working with somebody, they know I'm a Christian counselor. So if some people are coming to talk to me, I mean, I don't go and say, well, Matthew verse 12, I'm not that type of person, but
Right.
I'm using that thought process to say, here's what you can do. I'm using, biblical principles to take them through that. I don't really, I'm not the type that will throw everything, the kitchen sink at them and, turn them off. But
Right.
I'm also trying to everything that I can to try to, okay, I know where you're at. Now let's talk about, what we've been through or what you've been through. And I bring in those principles along the way, you know.
Okay. That's
And
good.
so if they end up, if it turns them off, um, that's their personal choice. But,
Right.
they know when they come to me, just as that when they come to you, if they're looking at your website and they come to you, they know that you're faith based,
Right.
so that they know that that's part of who you are. And I
Right.
think a lot of people look for that. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people want, at the same
Well, one
time.
of the things I noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but since I have been very open, like the book, I have tons of scriptures in there that I found, and then just to kind of relate, and then also on the website, yeah, I put a scripture right there because I was like, I don't want anybody to have to guess. I want them to know right
Yeah,
then. As soon as they go to the website, guess what? Hey, yes, this is my journey. This is what I'm doing.
absolutely.
So I definitely make sure that's part of it. But I've noticed that the people who come to me now are different,
Yeah.
and they're more open. Before there was, sometimes I would struggle with people, like to the point where it was really sucking the life out of me sometimes. And
Well, that's right.
now I feel like the people who are coming to me are just more coachable. They're more open to want to learn.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's something, maybe because I'm changing, that now, everything's shifting. So, is that something that you notice too?
Well, 110%.
Okay.
Now even say 150%, I think that people, come to me and they want to talk to me, but it's not a secret, what convene is, but it's not a secret to a lot of people that my beliefs are we learn through each other, we learn through our experiences, and that the way we show up. The mission of convene, a lot of people, then somebody said this to me or talking to know who you are and what the mission of convene is. The mission is to help others, right? And so when people come to me and they need to talk or they want to be, be counseled, they come to me because they know who I am,
Right.
and who I am and what I stand for. And I think
Right.
that's the same with you. They're coming to you, for your help, and nutrition and as a trainer, but they also know who you are and they
Right.
know that you're the person that they want to turn to. And sometimes I think that, well, not sometimes, all the time, I think that's so important
Yeah.
that, hey, don't hide it. Don't
Right.
hide it. Put it out there. Let people know who you are. Let people know I'm here to help people. That's,
Right.
people know that that's what I want to do. And so that's an important thing, is that when my phone rings and somebody needs to talk, they know that, they're going to get the real me, and I'm going to, help them through whatever it is to the best of my ability of what they're going through.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think you do the same thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's why people turn to you now. And I think people come to you more open and honest because they know that they can.
Yeah. And I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. It's a
I
good
do too.
feeling. It's a
I
good
do too.
feeling.
Yeah, it's a great feeling, let's be honest with that. It's a great feeling because not only does it help them, but it helps you spiritually. It helps you to know that you can pour into somebody, you know, faithfully and spiritually, and that they're getting something out of it. But you know, you are too.
Right.
And but if you're walking in, you know, God's image and Jesus' image, you know, that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what He tells us to do. You know.
Right. Wow. Well, Matthew, let's gosh, we're gonna have to do another podcast together at some point because we have so much more to talk about, but I'm trying to keep this within a certain time and I know you got stuff to do still. But I really, really want to hit on the wellness convention. You
Yeah.
got the wellness convention coming up, and I'm definitely grateful that you've allowed me to be a part of that. But let's talk a little bit about that just so
Yes.
people who are listening can know a little bit more too.
Yes. So within Convene, you know, everybody's having to make that business pivot right now. Everybody's having to make that personal pivot to online summits. And you know, again, I told you this. I'll say one thing. I went to when I was in Israel at the Western Wall. I was able to stand at the Western Wall and say a prayer, and I prayed that you know, for my marriage. I prayed for my wife. I prayed for my kids, my family. But I also prayed that Convene would do God's will, right? And so what we're doing right now is in a bad situation with everything that's going on. We're doing summits and we're doing online summits. Yesterday, I told you earlier, I mentioned we did the drug prevention one.
Right.
Next week, we have an entrepreneur one. The week after that, we have a Christians Unite one. It's going to be a great event. But the following week from that, we have a wellness, health and wellness. And one of our main speakers is you. That will be within that. And I think it's just wonderful, you know, what we're being, you know, what we've been able to do is just to bring together great people to share what they are, what they're doing, how they're doing it, share that message of wellness and you know, health and just all those different things. And it's exciting to me to have somebody like you coming on to speak and doing it the way that you're doing it, you know. There's a lot of people out there that are trainers and nutritionists and all that, but you're doing it the way it should be done. And I think that's just so impressive. And I'm excited. That is going to just be a great event. It's going to be May 21st and 22nd. And
Okay.
so it'll be all online, May 21st, 22nd. It'll all be online and we'll have speakers, you know, for 2 days, just
Yeah.
talking on wellness. So it's going to be
All right.
great.
Awesome. And is there a charge for that for anybody or?
Uh, No,
Okay.
absolutely not. That'll be free. So
Awesome.
that is a free event, and you know, people come in. Again, it's trying to lift people up, trying to give them, you know, help, trying to let them. You know, there'll be people on there, great speakers, people on there talking about wellness, things with wellness, talking about, you know, yoga, talking about fitness and nutrition.
Yeah.
It's just great lineup of speakers, and that's been the uh, you know, I don't want to drag it out too much longer, but Jody, that's been the best thing to me with Convene is this that the quality of people that are coming to Convene right now is just amazing. You
Yeah.
know, the people that I talk to, um, it's just amazing. And it's not on me. It's not, you know, like we talk about, it's on God's time. You know,
Yeah.
it's just amazing to me. It's people are coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, and
Yeah.
they're just great people, you
That
know.
was the woodwork. Yeah, who
Well, you know,
knew?
again, but you know, it was you know, we've met. You know, today I was talking. You know, I've talked to people, more people across the world, different places than I ever thought I would in
Yeah.
the last few weeks. You
Yeah.
know, so
Well, and that's
that's
what
been
I've told people too, like we all kind of can envision how this whole thing is going, right? Like some people are choosing, and I say that that word very carefully because I don't want anybody to misconstrue anything that I'm about to say. But I think that deep down we all have a choice, right? I could choose to wake up negative and think about all the things that I don't have, which is where I have been before. I'm not even gonna lie,
Yeah.
I've been that person before. But I really
Yeah.
enjoy choosing. I choose now to wake up saying, thank you, Lord, for what you have given me. Thank you for giving me all my limbs. And that's how I start my day. But one of the things that I'm noticing, especially with the way the world is right now, is, you know, all of these online summits, like I was able to speak for Detroit. Never even been to Detroit. But you know, had we not been in this pandemic, I probably wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to be a speaker there, you know, because then I would have
Yeah.
had to fly to Detroit, right? Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do that right now,
Yeah.
you know, and
That's
so and now with your thing, like the wellness convention, um, it these are now free things that so many more people can now watch. You know, before there was fees involved, right? Like I don't know about the wellness convention, but I know most of these other things, there's usually a fee involved because they have to have the money to put it on, right?
to put it
And
on. Yeah.
now we're using Zoom and we're using technology, and now all people have to do from the comfort of their home is get on a computer
Yeah.
or a phone even and watch.
That's right.
So, you know, I think that even though, and I will never say that this was a good thing that happened, but I think that we all can view things differently. And if we just choose to look at this in kind of a more positive aspect and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're going through this pandemic, but we're all in it together. And
Yep.
we're actually bringing more people together now than ever
Absolutely.
before, you
Yep,
know?
you're absolutely right. I think I can tell you that that's happening. You know, especially on the convene side, we're bringing people together, and you know, different communities and different people, you know, that are like-minded and people that love. I mean, we just started a writing community today for writers. You
Oh,
know,
awesome.
and
I have
so
to
if
get that
you're
information from you.
yeah, so if you're a writer, we have a great guy, Tom Levine, who's going to be the community leader. So there's
Yeah,
no community that's off the table. I mean, any community, you know, we want people to come in and just really kind of, you know, have a place where they can come together. It's
yeah,
free, you know,
yeah,
and so they can come in. You know, there's different aspects to it where you can pay money if you want to sell your training and all that. You can become part of, you know, a paid version of it where you can sell your content and all that. But that's the best thing about it. You know, how can we offer these places where people can come together and
right.
all that? So
Well, I'm
it's
excited.
great.
I'm definitely excited to become a part of it because, you know, it's definitely going to help, you know, open up my mind a little bit more to what the possibilities can be and things like that. So, but oh man, golly,
Well, we can do it again.
awesome.
And yeah, but definitely do it again. And you're going to
Yeah, for
come
sure.
on. And we've talked about you coming and being
Yep,
part of the Convene Connections podcast, which
yep,
is going to be really cool.
awesome.
We'll do that into the event and all that. So, yeah,
All
just a
right.
lot of good things. I'm so
Yeah,
glad we've met. We've become friends over the last 2 weeks and all
me
that. And
too. And you're in
it's
North
just,
Carolina, so my husband's family's in North Carolina. So hey.
I know, kidding. That's right. We're from, we're
They're
both part
actually
of
right
North.
around Charlotte, but I'll actually, well, we'll talk about this another time, but I'll be in Raleigh towards the end of this year too. So,
Okay, cool. Yeah,
yeah,
Raleigh. That's where I'm from, born and
yep,
raised.
yep.
That's where my son lives now. It's
Okay,
Raleigh,
awesome,
North Carolina. So
awesome. Well, I'm very grateful. I just want to acknowledge you for just all the amazing things that you're doing right now. Your heart is definitely in the right place. You've allowed me to kind of think of things a little bit differently, and I appreciate that. And you know, I went ahead and posted your website. So, you know, if there's anybody out there that wants to get in touch with Matt, just go to matthewcurran.com. I did post that on my Facebook page. So
yeah,
definitely check out his website. It's amazing.
yeah, yeah,
um, and you have just been a blessing to me in my life. So I
yeah,
truly just appreciate you.
yeah.
Um, and I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to Lisa because without her,
Yeah.
you know, she
Lisa's
was kind of
wonderful.
she was that messenger, right? Like they say
Yeah,
there's always those messengers. So she was that messenger that kind of came in and said, hey, I know
yeah.
two people that need to come together.
Well, she did, and that's exactly what she said. She's like, "You two have to meet." And Lisa's just wonderful. I was on a call with her earlier today, and
Okay.
I just think she has a heart of gold. You
Yeah.
know, she's out there trying to do amazing things, and I'm so excited that she's a part of Convene, and just she's just such a wonderful woman.
Yeah.
You know, I've just been lucky that I've been introduced to her
Yeah.
as well. Let me throw
Yeah.
out one more thing,
Yeah.
convenecommunities.com. Go check that out too.
Yeah, for
That's all
sure.
the communities. That's the big website. Mine's just a small one, you know. So that's just a small one, and we're doing some revamping to mine too, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I truly appreciate it.
All right, awesome. And make sure you send me all your events so that way I can kind of put it out to my people too. But
Yeah,
definitely thank you again for spending your Friday evening, or at least a little small portion of it with me. And
yeah,
love this conversation. So we'll definitely have to have some more in the future.
absolutely. We'll keep it going. That's
All right,
awesome.
Matt. Well, have a great evening and enjoy your weekend. God bless
Yeah.
you.
God bless you too. Thank
All
you
right,
so
have a good
much.
one.
Bye.
All right, bye.